I remember standing in the middle of the kitchen, barefoot, holding a mop soaked in lemon-scented water when the doorbell rang. I was tired, mentally more than physically. 15 years of caregiving will do that to you. 15 years of missed vacations, sleepless nights, and spoon-feeding people who used to be your whole world. It chips away at your spirit. I opened the door expecting a delivery. Instead, a man in a suit greeted me with a clipboard and a calm, detached smile. "Hi, you must be Emily. I'm with Dawson Realty. I'm here for the buyer's final walkthrough." I blinked. Buyers what? The new owners. They're closing tomorrow. I froze. Cold silence filled the air. They sold the house. My house. The home I maintained, protected, and gave my life to. And no one had told me. Not even a whisper. That's when I realized I wasn't family anymore. I was a placeholder. A maid with a last name. That day, something inside me broke. But it was also the day I started planning. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I'd make sure they remembered this betrayal for the rest of their lives. 15 years ago, I moved back into this house out of love. My father had just passed away, and my stepmother, Linda, was overwhelmed caring for my aging grandparents. I had no siblings, no children, and no partner. It just made sense that I, the free one, would come back home. At the time, I didn't mind. My grandparents were kind, warm, and full of stories. They raised me during summers, after all. I owed them everything. Linda was grateful. She even offered to pay me a small monthly amount from their pension to help with groceries and my personal needs. I refused at first, but over time, I accepted. The early years were hard, but manageable. My grandparents had their routines, medications, doctor's visits. I learned how to bathe them, manage their diets, deal with their episodes. I became their nurse, housekeeper, and emotional support system. The house became quieter each year. First my grandfather passed, then a year later, my grandmother. After that, Linda's own mother moved in, and then her aunt. Somehow, my duties grew, and my own life shrank. Linda always promised, "This house will be yours one day. You've earned it, Emily." I didn't ask for anything. I never signed anything. I just believed her. Like a fool. Birthdays came and went. I stopped dressing up. I lost touch with college friends. I never dated. The last time I went on a real vacation was 11 years ago. My whole world existed within the four walls of that home. And yet, it never occurred to me that I was slowly becoming invisible to them. Until the day that man showed up at the door. I took care of them for 15 years. Then they sold the house without telling me. They forgot I was family. I reminded them why they shouldn't have. After the realtor left that day, I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. I just sat at the kitchen table, staring at the floral placemats I had ironed the day before. I texted Linda. No response. Called. Straight to voicemail. I knew something was off. She always picked up, especially when it came to her house, as she liked to call it. That night, I sat in my room, the room I'd painted myself, the room I had spent nights crying in after funerals and medication failures. And I scrolled through the local real estate listings. There it was. Charming family home on Willow Avenue, 4-bed, 2-bath, newly renovated, private garden. Listed for $580,000. Sold, pending. Under the listing photos were words that made my heart drop. Vacant and ready for immediate move-in. Vacant. I was supposed to be gone. Erased. Like I had never been there. I confronted Linda 2 days later. She came over, sunglasses on her face like a shield. Her voice was overly sweet, as if she were doing me a favor. "Emily," she said, "you've done so much, and we're grateful. But the house was always in my name. We need to move on. We found a buyer who offered above market, and you'll have time to figure things out." I stared at her, stunned. So I'm just being evicted? Like a tenant who overstayed? She had the audacity to smile. "Don't be dramatic. You're a strong woman. You'll land on your feet." I reminded her of the years I gave. The promises. The funerals. The sponge baths. The endless nights without sleep. She waved her hand. "You should have gotten something in writing." That sentence. That one sentence. It turned my stomach to steel. Linda wasn't stupid. She knew I trusted her. She used it. Later, I overheard her talking on the phone with her daughter, my cousin, Rachel. She thought we'd keep the house for her? God, she's delusional. They laughed. I stood behind the door, frozen, cheeks burning. That was the moment I shifted. From shock to rage. Not the screaming, impulsive kind of rage. The cold, focused kind. The kind that plans. In the weeks that followed, I pretended to accept things. I packed slowly. Smiled politely. I even brought Linda her favorite tea one afternoon, like I used to. But I was documenting everything now. Every receipt. Every medication log. Every message. I backed up years of photos of the house, the renovations I had done, the home health care I managed, even the hospice visits I coordinated. And then, I found something. A trust document from 10 years ago, buried in old files, where my grandfather had written a handwritten clause stating his wish for me to retain residency as long as I wanted. It wasn't legally binding, but it was a start. And the final nail? I found texts between Linda and the buyers, mocking me. Saying things like, "We'll have her out before closing. She's harmless. Poor thing thinks she's still family. LOL. That's when the coldness inside me crystallized. They called me harmless. They were wrong. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. The kind of afternoon where the sun shines a little too brightly for the darkness brewing inside you. I heard a knock. Not polite. Not hesitant. 3 loud, sharp pounds. I opened the door to find a man in a suit, clipboard in hand. Behind him, a younger couple stood on the lawn, smiling awkwardly. "Hi there," he said. "We're here to do a final walkthrough before closing." I blinked. "Closing?" The young woman waved sheepishly. "We're the buyers. Linda said you'd already moved out." Moved out? I hadn't even packed everything. I hadn't even processed. I told them there must be a mistake. That I still lived here. That this was my home. They looked at each other. The man turned stiff. I'm sorry, but according to our contract, the property was to be vacant by today. We're closing in 48 hours. I closed the door in their faces. My hands shook as I texted Linda. You told them I moved out? No reply. So I called. And called again. Straight to voicemail. Finally, I drove to her place. She didn't answer the door. But her car was there. Lights on. I could see Rachel inside, smirking through the curtain. They were ignoring me. Ghosting me. Like I was some old stranger desperate to cling to their past. Not the woman who bathed their dying father. Not the woman who kept their mother's memory alive through scrapbooks and stories. That night, I cried in the hallway. Not in my room. Not tucked in bed. In the hallway. Like a ghost in the house I was vanishing from. And then I heard a ping. An email. It was from a law firm. The subject line. Notice of termination of occupancy, immediate action required. That was it. Not even a phone call. Not even the decency of a face-to-face conversation. They had sent lawyers to push me out. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen I had baked birthday cakes in for their kids, and I made a decision. They think I'm nothing. They think I won't fight. They're about to find out who I really am. I left that kitchen with a shaking body, but not a broken spirit. The betrayal stung like fire under my skin. Every room in that house whispered memories I had stitched together like a quilt, only to have the entire fabric ripped from me without warning. But I refused to cry again. Not for them. Not anymore. I packed only what mattered, my mother's old locket, the family albums they probably forgot existed, and my own journals full of every year I had spent caring for their parents. I moved into a friend's guest house. For the first time in over a decade, I was alone. And that loneliness? It was peaceful. No more Rachel's eye rolls. No more Linda's passive-aggressive tone. No more being invisible in a house I kept alive. I started writing everything down. Dates. Tasks. Medical records. Even text messages they'd sent me over the years about caretaking and keeping the house afloat. I made copies of all documents proving I had contributed, financially, emotionally, and legally, through bank transfers, groceries, utilities, and even the funeral arrangements. And then I found something that would change everything. An email Linda had forwarded to me years ago, carelessly, I'm sure, discussing putting both our names on the house back when their mother first fell ill. I wasn't imagining it. They had once intended to make me part owner. And they conveniently forgot. Or rather, they remembered, and decided I didn't matter. But I wasn't going to waste my energy on sadness. No. I was going to use it. Every tear. Every sleepless night. Every time they made me feel like a servant instead of family. I was going to fight back. Not by yelling. Not by begging. But by telling the truth, loudly. I contacted a local legal aid group. Explained everything. They were stunned I had no compensation, no contract, no recognition for 15 years of full-time caregiving. You may have a case, the woman said. Even without paperwork, there are verbal agreements, emotional contracts. You need to go public. Go public. That's when the idea hit me. You know, revenge doesn't always come as fire and fury. Sometimes, it's calm. Precise. Icy. I didn't scream. I didn't show up at their doors. Instead, I published everything. All the journal entries. Pictures of the meals I made for their parents. Screenshots of Rachel texting me last minute to cancel on a promised weekend shift. Bank receipts of me paying utility bills. And that forwarded email where Linda promised I'd be co-owner once things were stable. I posted it all on a caregiver support forum that often went viral. Title: They let me care for their parents for 15 years. Then sold the house behind my back. Within 48 hours, it had 2 million views. Within 72, local media picked it up. And a week later, Rachel messaged me. Take it down. You're ruining our family's name. I didn't respond. Linda emailed. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought you'd understand. This was always going to be our inheritance. Please, stop. Oh, now they cared? Now they remembered who I was? Their employers started asking questions. Their neighbors started whispering. And when a local elder care nonprofit invited me to speak at their annual conference, I went. I stood on stage and told my story, not with bitterness, but truth. How I loved their parents more than they ever did. How I gave them my youth, and they paid me back with silence and betrayal. The room cried with me. And afterward, someone approached me. A woman with tired eyes and a voice like gravel. My kids are already treating me like a burden, she whispered. You reminded me to protect myself, before it's too late. I nodded. Because finally, I wasn't invisible. A month later, I got a certified letter from a lawyer. Linda and Rachel were being investigated for elder financial abuse. Apparently, some of those funds they used to sell the house were never properly documented. Some accounts in their parents' names were misused. Karma, in a well-cut suit. I never got the house back. But I didn't want it anymore. Because I found something better. My voice. And once I used it, I never stopped.